Let's do this. Let's see if I can. I'm trying to get past my front screen. Just give me a second, or a moment, rather. All right, pro democracy candidates, boiled by months of street protests in Hong Kong, won a stunning victory in local elections on Sunday, as record numbers voted a vivid expression of the city's aspirations and its anger with the Chinese government. It was a pointed rebuke of Beijing and its allies in Hong Kong, and the turnout, 7 in 10 eligible voters, suggested that the public continues to back the democracy movement, even as the protesters grow increasingly violent. Young Hong Kongers, a major force behind the demonstration of the past 6 months, played a leading role in the voting surge, with 3 million voters casting ballots. Pro democracy candidates captured 389 of 452 elected seats, up from only 124, and far more than they had ever won. The government's allies held just 58 seats, a remarkable collapse from 300. They bodied them. They went from the majority to the overwhelming minority the second they let these people, get out here and vote in large numbers. To many democracy advocates, Sunday was a turning point. There has been a very deep awakening of the Hong Kong people, said Alan Ling, chairman of the Civic Party, one of the largest pro democracy parties. The elections were for district councils, one of the lowest elected offices in Hong Kong, and they are typically a subdued affair focused on community issues. The job mostly entails pushing for neighborhood needs like bus stops and traffic lights. But this election took an outsized significance and was viewed as a referendum on the unrest that has created the city's worst political crisis in decades. In a semi autonomous part of China where greater democracy is one of the protesters' biggest demands, it gives residents a rare chance to vote. The gains at the ballot box are likely to embolden a democracy movement that has struggled with how to balance peaceful and violent protests to achieve its goals. They are also likely to deepen the challenges for China's central government, which wants to curb the unrest in Hong Kong, and they might exacerbate Beijing's fears about giving the city's residents even greater say in choosing their residents. The district councils are among the most democratic bodies in Hong Kong. Almost all the seats are directly elected, unlike the legislature, where the proportion is just over half. The territory's chief executive is also not chosen directly by voters, but is instead selected by a committee stacked in favor of Beijing. The election results will give democracy forces considerably more influence on that committee, which is scheduled to choose a new chief executive in 2022. Well, that's what they were really worried about. They said it's okay to have all these little seats, but if you get any say over who takes over the head of state, it's going to be a nightmare for them anyway. The district councils name about a tenth of the group's 1,200 members, and now all of these will flip from pro-Beijing to pro-democracy seats. Democracy advocates already control about a quarter of the seats, while other previously pro-Beijing sectors of the committee are now starting to lean toward democracy, most notably accountants and real estate lawyers. Mr. Ling, the Civic Party chairman, called on the Chinese Communist Party to change its policies in Hong Kong. Unless the CCP is doing something concrete to address the concerns of the Hong Kong people, he said, I think this movement cannot end. Regine Ip, a cabinet member and a leader of a pro Beijing political party, said she was surprised to see so many young voters, many of whom tried to confront her with the protesters' demands. Normally, she said, the young people do not come out to vote, but this time the opposition managed to turn them out. That's kind of like over here where the majority of the people that vote are, was it over 60? Um, Ahead of the election, the city's leadership was concerned that the vote would be marred by the chaos of recent months. Some of the most violent clashes yet between protesters and the police took place last week, turning two university campuses into battlegrounds. But the city remained relatively calm on Sunday as voters turned out in droves. Long lines formed at polling centers in the morning, snaking around skyscrapers and past small shops. Riot police officers were deployed near polling stations on Sunday. David Lee, a retired. This article just goes on and on. Damn, several more paragraphs. This wow. The chief thing to take away from here is that they gave the people this rare opportunity to vote, and the pro democracy candidates completely demolished and destroyed the Communist Party over there, and they're worried that if they're able to have influence over the head of state, they might get someone who's not part of the Communist Party and actually will act in a manner that is meeting the needs of the people. And it's really interesting because they're admitting that the seats they won are not, all that powerful, but the fact that they won so many of them with high voter turnout of 70% has caused them to get panicked about the possibility of what's going to happen in a few years when this chief executive position comes up for office. And it also reveals that even in these countries where it seems as if they don't care about these citizens and their position, if enough people go out into the street, like with the Yellow Vest movement in France, you can make a difference. And the chief thing to take away from this is that even though those at the top have the power, those at the bottom have the people. That's why with the Yellow Vest group, they have a 70% approval rating, and they're just protesters. And they get accused of being violent, they get accused of being disorganized, but they're so approved due to the fact that the opposition to them, which is the leadership of that country, referring to France, is so despised. It's the same thing here where they're talking about they've had violence and whatever, even though Hong Kong's owned officers are the reason that even happens. Uh, it's the same thing. The people are knowing of the fact that these are individuals who are going out and, in one case, gave their lives to help ensure democracy and to just get rid of a broken, not concerned about them system. What's up, Envoy? Let me wave at you. I'm gonna do like those celebrities when they go over to Hollywood. They just do this, act like everybody knows who they are. My favorite part of award shows actually is when they're celebrities and I don't even know who they are. It's just this person is famous because they're famous. Other people know who they are. Because I always say that usually if there's some actor or some other person that is notable, I'll be able to, I won't have to look them up. I've heard of them enough times. Man, screw those award shows. Yeah, it's just it's the same people getting the same award over and over. I don't watch them. I just brought up as an example of how that's the way they act, or they're throwing their hand around and getting next to each other and taking pictures and all that. Now they infuse politics in those shows, and it can be rather cringy. You mean now they infuse politics in those shows? I'm assuming you meant to say that they instead of the. Since a lot of these people don't know too much about what they're talking about. Well, that's because we know that they don't really pay attention to this stuff outside of the like just the bare minimum. They know who the president is. They know a couple of things he's done, but they couldn't tell how many countries we're bombing or the level of income inequality that we bring up here commonly. Um, it's that that basic understanding they have, but outside of that, it doesn't really go that further, which is really pathetic. But we'd be here all day if we could mention all the little things people should know about that they don't. Oh, I saw my first Bloomberg ad. It was, I believe, yesterday. No, it was this morning, and he was like, "Oh, he rose from middle class origins, and he believes that we should have a healthcare system where everyone is guaranteed, but you can keep whatever plan you have." Like, oh, okay, thank you for silently confirming that you want to keep the pharmaceutical industry price gouging regular people for another 4 years, if not 8. So he's a clown, and he's unfortunately getting a lot of attention because of the amount of money that he has. Him and Steyer, yeah, they're just these people need to just get out of here. Nobody's gonna vote for them. Nobody's excited for them. They're just like they have no appeal group, and the only time people say I like this person is when they don't know anything about their actual record. That's why, uh, after Gabbard went after Harris in the second debate for her, criminal justice or criminal injustice past of not prosecuting Mnuchin when he was kicking people out of their houses over here. In addition to locking up minorities so they could do free labor for California, all of a sudden her numbers went down. Because a lot of people they only know the surface level person. They don't know about their, and it's really pathetic because, like I said, you can go online and look up any famous person and see their background or their past. So it sucks that we have to have these debates that are, people can only speak for like 2 minutes and they have to say some really long form answer to get you to go, oh my God, really? They did that? But this is the low information era, so I'm not too surprised. I remember I had this one guy who asked me, is your Johnson documentary about just the impeachment or his whole life? I'm like, instead of asking me that, why don't you go watch it? And I did answer it in a kind way. So maybe I'm liable for encouraging that kind of laziness. But I mean, my thing is when you're looking at this stuff on a computer, you can open up another tab and you can click on it and see what it's about. At least getting that basic answer of if it's just this one part of his tenure or his whole life would be very quickly answered if people just decide to do the basic thing of looking into it. But they don't care. All right, let me see what else is up. Yeah, the Hong Kong thing was really it's probably the best political news we've had all year, just globally anyway, because uh, like the Israel thing, for example, we've had Netanyahu not get flat out reelected twice this year, but and then indicted, and I have a video on that this week. Um, but that's kind of the full extent of positive or somewhat decent news. This is actually like I don't see an angle where you can spin this as not being a good thing. And it seems pretty universal that people are going, "Yay, China's getting their little communist party destroyed, and the people don't like them because they've been suffering under tyrannical rule for so long." We actually had if anyone remembers, I had about maybe 2 or 3 streams where I mentioned how the Venezuela coup that we were trying to do, that rhymes, the coup that the U.S. was trying to do, how I don't have a problem with getting rid of Maduro, provided that it's by the people. And the people, when I say that, have to be from the country that he is supposedly oppressing. So when you have the Hong Kong protesters who are indigenous to that area saying, we don't want these people in power anymore, we're going to do this through elections, I don't object to it at all. Let's see. Always is definitely going to bookmark the Netanyahu video if you make it. No, I already made it. I'm just not. I'm gonna. I usually just release the ones I pre-record randomly. I'll probably just put that out tomorrow. I had another one where I ended up praising Harris. I was shocked because she said something that actually made sense. So you'll be able to see it very soon. Like I said, I just try to have stuff throughout the week to put on there. I know you've had some choice words for Netanyahu. Yeah, in reference to that documentary you're talking about, I want to. I'm trying to get a cutoff point because I want it to be more than one part. So I'll probably have it from his first tenure, as the head of state, and then after that we can maybe have like a wilderness year type of thing where it's everything up, everything from that point to now. Usually when I say that though, understand one of the reasons that doesn't stick is because for some reason with a lot of these political figures, there's big gaps of time where we don't really have that much information about them. Like if I were to do, let's say, if I had a goal of doing a Reagan documentary, right? This is someone who was around for 60 years before he was president. I probably could get a lot of information about the 60s because he was governor, uh, and the 70s, and that would pretty much be it. So when I understand when I say I want this period to that period, I still might go a little bit further than that because it really depends on what all is available. And I always thought that was crazy too, just these huge periods where there's like a little sentence for this year and a sentence for that year. That's why that McConnell one's going to be a lot easier to make because we actually have video of his entire time in the Senate. So if there's where biographers have failed to record with words the different, I guess, periods of his career, we can actually see it and we can go, okay, well, this is big enough to include. This is foreshadowing of some later position. And he was a really decent, moderate type of Republican back in the day, and he just got in bed with those donors. That was the that was the end of good old campaign finance reform Mitch, and he became the donors. Oh, I can't say that word with the B. I hope it isn't anything incredulous, because I don't think my heart can take it. That's a lot of weird stuff on here. I think there was one guy who was like, uh, "Did, did you get what was it some kind of like certification to talk about histories?" I mean, I was like sort of flattered, but I think it's online, man. I'm not some expert. I read. Right now, I'm waiting on this very scary question. Have any thoughts on the history of South Africa? Um, at one point when I first looked into it, from what I understand, the whites over there were able to, even though there were more blacks, they divide and conquer, and that's how they got into power. Um, I really don't pay that much attention to that particular country because it's not like Iran and North Korea where we're always, like pushing for war with them or anything decade after decade. So I'm really kind of neutral stance, sort of, where a lot of things have happened. I mean, I would say the same thing about Korea. A lot of things have happened over there. No, but I'll look more into it if you want to recommend it. I just don't pay attention to them for the reasons I gave earlier. But I'm open to learning more about it. It's just a gradual thing. Let's see, but South Africa definitely its dark past and even present. I'm looking for a new place. We'll try and support of. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, what the hell? I thought that thing was dead. I do have one exclusive video on there. I'm gonna put up another one. This maybe if it's not this week, then next week. I'm gonna just like there will be more stuff there that isn't on here in the with the gradual passage of time and whatnot. So that was the reason I had I guess kind of been holding off on it, just sort of figuring out what all to put because I don't want it to just be entirely romance stuff on there. I know the majority of people like to show up for that. Uh, but I have a whole bunch of different ways to approach that angle, so it's all good. I'll just put it up later, or I'll just put up more stuff that relates to these topics at nauseum. Basically, you mentioned also perhaps doing another vid in the Twilight Zone. So, yeah, I want to go and rewatch the ones I had before, and then give some kind of update on it. But like I said, one of the biggest reasons that ended was because I switched over to doing the live show on Saturday, whereas those were the mainstream I would do on the Saturdays that they were done. Um, so I'll probably just get up I don't know. I don't like streaming back to back. It just feels weird, like, oh, here's one at 1 o'clock, and then here's another at 6. It's just, but I'll find a way to squeeze it in somehow. We'll see what happens. That's because they're scheduled. Music fan. Now if I was evil, I would say go rewatch the beginning of the stream. No, democracy candidates were were able to just completely grab a whole bunch of the votes, and they won. They won hundreds of seats, and it's considered this big victory. Somebody's calling me from Florida. What the hell? Always get the weirdest phone calls, man. People you don't even know who they are. They just mm, mm, go away, man. There's people are. Sometimes I think about what would happen if we didn't have a phone. What would happen if it wasn't the internet? So much strange stuff wouldn't occur. You know, I've been getting these calls from these different states for a long time. Kansas, Iowa, these different places I've never even been to. No one from over there. It's funny how someone tries to interrupt the live stream. It's only when the live stream is on do people try and call your or knock on your door. Yeah, it's really weird because I'll be sitting here during the day, just I could, let's say, write something out for an hour or 2 hours, and no one interrupts, no one calls, nothing. And then all of a sudden you start streaming. This person wants to go on the phone. This person wants to bang on your door. This person wants to call you up. It actually when I first started talking to who was that? A character I brought up on here a couple times. This one chick. Uh, it was a Saturday when we had our first call, and I remember distinctively that on that Saturday there was about a 2 or 3 hour period where I was just oh crap. Let me see if this is acting up. Hear me? Am I audible? Can I be heard? Is it working? I'm seeking confirmation. Someone tell me if this is working or not. I'm very worried that I'm not being heard at this point, and I'm just rambling to myself. All right, good. Yeah, I was saying that when I first started talking to this one broad, we had a call on a Saturday, and that same Saturday, I sat here and had no interruptions. It was complete calm and peace and quiet for about 3 hours straight. And then I went in the car with this relative to go pick something up, and then they called me, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing, there's traffic lights, because the windows rolled down. It's like, damn it. So close. Well, not so close, but just it's funny how the entire time no noise, and then after a while there's noise. Someone's take you to a restaurant. Yeah, that was a horrible event. That place had us sit there for an hour with no food. And it was funny because one of the people that was there with me said, "Oh, we didn't notice that because we were all having conversations." Like, no, we weren't. I was just sitting here trying to look on my phone and make the time go by because, I don't like being in scenarios where I can't do anything in the sense that, if you sleep, for example, I don't get upset over that because sometimes you're tired and you need to sleep. You need, to metaphorically recharge your battery. But if, I'm like, let's say, out somewhere and I don't have a book or something to write with, it's really annoying because I don't like to just sit around and not, you know, like, well, even if it's something as trivial as watching something I enjoy, if I'm still getting something out of it, uh, whether it's enjoyment or just some fulfillment, I'm fine. But as far as just let me sit here and wait for this person for 20 minutes, it's horrible. I've wondered this for some time since you stream on your phone. Would you consider maybe stream from a park uh, or outside? I don't know. I don't mind either way. Just asking if you thought about it. Well, I don't stream. I'm streaming on the computer. When I was, do you remember? when you could see like up here, that was me on my phone, and it would hurt my hand. So I started, well, this is not gonna be a permanent fixture. And I guess that format was a lot easier to put up with because um, I always had, just like it's a good example. I always had little things to put it up against, so I would put up against my leg or whatever. Um, but no, I'm not opposed to doing anything outside. I just, if I did do something like that, I'd want to make sure because I mentioned yesterday, the current state of my phone is terrible. It's actually just continuously dying over and over again because it needs a new battery. But if I get one and let's say go somewhere, uh, I'll probably, well, I'm aware of the fact that you can't stream off a computer in the park. But I'm saying that if I went to some place of distinguishing nature, I'd probably be willing to stream for a little bit. The problem is a lot of times if you go somewhere and you want to, stream something and you have to use your phone and you're trying to use an Uber, then that creates a series of complications because you have to wonder about, how much my battery am I using and if I'm going to be able to. There's a whole series of things that go into. I'm a little reluctant to just pull out my phone, and start, throwing it around and recording stuff. So it really just depends on the circumstances at hand. The computer park stream coming next year. I'm gonna have it be on MLK Day and be like, we hold these truths to be self-evident that computers can't stream in the park. That's where the connection's going on. And then every other word it just buffers. My God. I still can't believe I haven't done any of those little cartoon because I was gonna have a romance parody and it was gonna be like drawn out like the show, and it was gonna make fun of all the little different stereotypes that people say and the little things that they claim and whatnot. Because I actually had a couple of people leave some comments that I thought were really goofy, and I was gonna address those and make fun of them and whatnot. Just people claiming that if you have this one thing, everything will change. I'm like, man, I don't live in any of the Pixar universes that we've seen so far. So those fairy tales don't fly with me. It's kind of it reminds me sort of, and then people who get offended by that I always say it's kind of like the religion stuff where I had a guy who wrote some comments about, in the book of whatever they said, and I said, the fables won't work here. Like, someone might take that to mean, oh, he's insulting my religion, but you're the one who introduced this. If you hadn't came on here and said uh, Psalm 6:2 said whatever, I wouldn't have replied in that manner because it wouldn't have been introduced. Say, man, people always put something out there, and then when they get the reception that they like, then it's an issue. That's why my friend, when we did the stream last year, the what was it, romance stupidity or something like that, and someone in the comment section was like, let's see what he looks like so we can determine if he is attractive or not. I Even as he said he was willing to be on camera, I declined because I don't think someone who does not do this, regularly and has even has a channel to begin with should have their face put on there and be made fun of and the usual roundabout stuff people do on here. I mean, I do all the time because I'm not ashamed of the way I look. It's like politics, race, gender, sexuality. It can be very divisive. No, but it's people looking for anything to insult you over, and you know, some stuff lands a little bit easier than others. But the point of it all is that if you don't introduce it, it's all just speculation, assumptions, and uh, you know, people looking to find something to blame for your position. Oh, you came from this background and all that. It's like it's not your damn business. Just relax. We don't need a whole character breakdown of some dude making videos on here. It's not that. It's not necessary to do that. About to have two Giuliani stories this week. That was crazy. They had a bunch of papers that were released. Oh, I know it's the internet. That's why I said that. It's a good thing that I'm not one of these people who curls up in a ball and commits suicide because someone called me a name. I remember I actually had one person who kept writing a racial slur, and then I said, okay, and or does this have to do with anything? And then they told me to disregard their comment. It's like that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. People just they they love messing with others on here. That's why a lot of times I don't even respond to comments anymore. It's just what's the point? You can be arguing with a guy from Louisville, Kentucky, or maybe Malibu. What is this? Mobile, Alabama. Oh, I don't even know I can't even read that. It's so far away from India. Just so many randoms. Yeah, I don't. That's why I said I can't. These I can't control who sees and what they think of what I put out there. It's not in my power. So it's also not in my power to try to actually be able to change their minds. That's why I don't respond more often than not to their comments, at least directly. Like write something back. It's gonna be me staring at the camera for the rest of the stream. I'm at a loss for words. I gave my typical stump speech, so now I have no more sentences or phrases or terms to use. I'm gonna have to retire. That would actually be funny if there was a capacity of how many times you can say the same thing, and then if you say it, I don't know, 20 videos, it's like okay, well you can't use that anymore. And then one day I just stop. Like I have no more original things to say. It's all been reiterated before on my part. See, somebody left Biden's campaign. Who's this lady? Vanessa Cardenas. Uh, Discontent over the front runner's position on immigration. Biden, in particular, has irritated many Latinos for his stance on certain immigration issues, including a refusal to call for a moratorium on deportations. I will not stop all deportations. If you commit a crime, that's a felony, Biden said before being interrupted by other protesters. Uh, okay, well, that's somewhat interesting. I mean, but it's kind of like one of those things where that's why I said people don't know that much about him. That's why he was the front runner for so long. His position on immigration is as known as the president he served under, as far as if you look it up, you can find it. But because people just know a name, they support him. And then, oh man, he just said this one thing that is in line with his position from 10, 20, 30 years ago. Oh, okay. Well, got to get out of here. It's like, yeah, but you shouldn't have joined in the first place. He already was that way before you even met him. And you could have found out because he's been famous in the sense of being a senator and having his record covered for 40 years. So you had all the time in the world to look him up, and you chose not to. I feel like politics will take an even stranger turn this coming psych decade. 2020 is fast approaching. Well, I mean, basically with me, when I had mentioned wanting to run for the House because my congressperson is a piece of garbage. Um, I know that if I said that while running against that person, like let's say it's a debate or it's some kind of town hall or some other gathering, me saying my congressperson is a piece of garbage or is trash or whatever would catch headlines. It would be reported by the news. Challenger to representative whatever has been called piece of trash by this long shot candidate. That would get to attract more attention than the actual issues of the campaign. And that's why I said that, that's in reference to you talking about it would be a stranger thing this upcoming decade. Those are the kind of things that cause people to realize that this system is screwed up, where you have 70, it was a 78% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, 40% of the homeless working and still having nowhere to live, and you're crying a foul over some dude saying that some member of Congress was is garbage. And then being able to cite their record. Now they haven't helped anyone in their district. They barely even come back over. I mean, it all goes back to what I said about how rhetoric is made to matter more than really anything else for some reason. We talked about on Sunday, or rather Saturday, I believe it was, the destruction of this person's life by their parent, and how that same person who did the destroying is getting a more fair deal than the person who uses some swear words. That was the greatest offense. The other person, they just cursed. They said some words people didn't like, and that was enough to get them to have a lesser approval rating among this group than the person who you know literally did this and was like, I'm gonna have children I can't afford, and people are gonna help me take care of them. No one has a problem with it. So I saw we live in the twilight zone, because a lot of this stuff I could never participate in the way that I see other people doing it. I couldn't just accept that someone did something really stupid that is, like a not even just, like with let's say a DUI. It's a one night thing, uh, very reckless, dangerous. But a lot of times you can have a circumstance where it doesn't have lasting repercussions. Like, let's say no, there's no car accidents, nobody dies, it's an empty road. There's still a, not to be not to have a pun, but there's a lane to not have lasting repercussions. This is something that is going to impact the world for the next, 20 to 80 years. And it's already starting off in a horrible, ridiculous, almost cartoony way, and people are enabling it. They're okay with it. That's why I said my contemporary is so garbage, because you know they get around here and they want to make you feel bad or get sad because of what somebody says. That's why the media talks about Trump's tweet so much. But when you actually have people who go out and do these little things that serve to further decline society, like having kids they can't afford, people don't have a problem with it. In a lot of cases, they enable it. They go, okay, I'll watch him on this day. Oh, you need me to bring you some food here? It's like, no, like, why do that? It surely can't be out of the kindness of your heart, because we saw how quick you were to turn your back on the person who said something you didn't like. Say, man, people are so cartoony. I actually do sometimes feel like I live in a real life version of The Simpsons or Family Guy, one of those other shows, because in real life it actually feels like a parody of life at this point. Like we're in some simulation of just how low we can go. Oh, UN agency finds greenhouse gases hit record levels in 2018. Uh, Levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere reached record highs in 2018. The Guardian reports the findings from the United Nations agency shows the increase in key climate heating greenhouse gases measured in 2018 were all above the average for the last decade. Oh, climate change doesn't exist. Let me get rid of that article. We got to go back to denying reality and pretending that things that have been proven are not actually the case. And it looks like someone kidnapped Envoy again, so we're gonna have to go and put his face on a missing persons poster or a milk carton or one of those other, or on a, what was that one show, America's Most Wanted? We're gonna have a police sketch of the suspect who caught him, and it'll just be a silhouette. They'll be like, I wonder who that was, because we don't know what they look like, or if it was a male or a female. You know, it probably was a dude who who was able to grab him. was missing. I'm busy today. I'm just here to say hello. Oh well, it's fine. We can speak on Saturday, I guess. It's it's quite all right. Not too upset. Like like I said before, I don't behoove people for having schedules and things that are outside of the YouTube stuff. We've already talked about how goofy this website is. A lot of the people on here are too. So it's not something I would get upset over. All right, it looks like we're out. Everyone's talked out. No further comments or statements to make. If that's the case, I can wrap it up. Um, in conclusion, I'm glad the Hong Kong story turned out the way it did. We've been watching protests over there for a while. I chose not to cover it because I really wasn't fully aware of what exactly happened because I knew that they had communist rule, no democracy. That's something that's been going on for a long time, but I didn't specifically know what the event was. Just practicing Korean, and you weren't even watching music thing. You're over there messing with me. Um, it was a really nice outcome. I hope that maybe in 5 or 10 years they get an actual head of state that is pro democracy and hopefully is not a centrist or any of these other little nonsensical. I can't pick which side I'm on ideologies. Uh, but yeah, it's a good story, and here's hoping for more developments of its liking. So thank you for checking us out. I'll see you on Saturday, and I'll put some stuff up from Tuesday to Friday.